I wasn't going to talk about Wreck-It Ralph. I saw it some time ago, and it didn't leave that much of an impression on me. I thought that it was a cute movie. It was fun. I've certainly seen worse animated films. I thought it was a bit inaccessible to people who aren't familiar with video games and popular culture in general. But no, the more I think about it, though, the more I think about it, this is one of the darkest films I've ever seen. This movie is the stuff of nightmares. It is an existential tour de force. Right. The theme of the movie is that when the lights go out in the arcade, you know, the video arcade, you might not all know this since they're largely becoming obsolete, but in the arcade, which is a place where, if you don't know, there are these great big video game cabinets set up that people can go and play video games at, as opposed to just a small console. It's a product of a bygone era. But when the lights go out at night and there's nobody around, the characters from the video games come out and they travel through each other's games. They socialize, they mingle, they live their lives and dream their dreams and talk their talks. Primarily traveling through the surge protector in the middle of the arcade, which connects all the machines. Imagine, if you will, humanity completely by accident gives birth to artificial intelligence on a large scale, just by some fluke of fate or technology or things we don't even understand. We have actually given birth to an entire new race of beings. Beings who are, for all intents and purposes, human beings. They are human beings. Now imagine, if you will, that we are slaughtering them by the thousands, by the millions, destroying their worlds as casually as signing a form on a receipt and wheeling something out to a garbage bin. How would you feel if you knew that for years you had been literally playing with lives? That you had been destroying those lives? This is a conceit in recent fiction. It's a trope. The thought, the idea that when we're not around, the toys, the diversions that we have created in our likeness are in the likeness of any living creature, be it fictional or not, that when we're not around, they have a life of their own. Toy Story, Pixar's epic trilogy, is perhaps the best example of this. When the child leaves the room, all his toys come to life. They talk, they converse, they think on things, they contemplate, they're people. And for some reason, they live in silence. To the point of death. That scene in the first Toy Story movie where the bully kid, the villain kid, Sid, he attaches fireworks to the back of a toy soldier, and the soldier is slaughtered. He's blown apart. You just saw a murder in that movie. Well, it's the same thing with Wreck-It Ralph. Or Reboot. Reboot. You ever watch Reboot? It's this Canadian show. The theme of Reboot is that in our computers, there in fact exists whole civilizations of people somehow who have evolved within the electrical currents of our systems, and every time you play a game and win, you decimate, you devastate their society. You leave like a great big smoking crater in their cities, and everyone who is inside has been mutilated horribly. How would you feel if you knew that you'd been doing that? Well, with Toy Story, you can accept that maybe these magical creatures have some kind of instinct, have some kind of compulsion to live this way. They've got a good life. they're taken care of. They don't want a fuss to be made over them. They don't want things to change because they live very comfortably. They've got a home. They fulfill their purpose, which clearly does bring them satisfaction of bringing joy to the children that they've become owned by. It's not slavery if that's what they want, right? And they even accept that they will inevitably be destroyed just in the course of living. And in Reboot, well, you can accept that this is the way things are because there's a barrier between the citizens of the computer world and the the human being who is playing the games, because neither of them fully understands that the other exists. There's really no way for them to communicate directly. But in Wreck-It Ralph, that is not the case. The characters in these video games, in these arcade machines, they can see through the screens. They know full well the nature of their world, that they are living in a game, that they are playing out these games for the amusement of human beings who exist on the outside, who rule their fates, literally. And every time one of their games is considered broken or obsolete or what have you, then it is unplugged and thrown away. And the denizens of this game have to abandon ship. They have to rush into the Surge Protector to live as vagrants, as their entire world is destroyed. And this is going to happen to all of them, eventually. There's no way to avoid it. Give it another 10 years, maybe 20 at most. All those arcade machines are probably going to be unplugged. They can't live in the Surge Protector. It's going to be unplugged too. What happens when there's a blackout? But all these people, they're going to die. Their Armageddon is well on its way. How do you think the owner of that arcade would feel, knowing that every time he took care of a busted game, he was committing Holocaust after genocide after Holocaust? Wouldn't that be utterly horrifying for us to realize that we had birthed this new race, this new class of beings, and that we had been destroying them, murdering them by the thousands, even millions, depending on the complexity of the game? I mean, Wreck-It Ralph, he's traveling from game to games. See, as the villain of his game, he's grown dissatisfied with literally being treated like garbage, because as the villain, he's relegated to a trash heap that's created by the detritus of all the stuff that he wrecks. That's his role in the game. He wrecks a building, and the player, controls this little Mario-like guy who's like the building superintendent who fixes the buildings that Ralph wrecks. And Ralph, when the game shuts off, Ralph goes to the pile of garbage that he's created, and he just sleeps off screen. So Ralph leaves the game in search of some totem of heroism so that he can gain validation that he is more than just a villain. And in so doing, he almost destroys another game. And this is a big deal. I mean, these video game characters, they're not unfeeling about their plight. This is the worst thing that can happen. The games begin to glitch uncontrollably. Characters from other games begin coming into their games and wrecking everything. And they have to migrate through into the Surge Protector in hopes of living some pathetic half-life. And why don't they just tell people what's happening? Are they afraid that we'll destroy them? What if they put up a sign or something? Or what if the first-person shooter games, where you see the soldier come out, why don't they just do a Horton Hears a Who and scream, "We are here! Please don't kill us! Please don't destroy our world!" Little girl's playing a first-person shooter. The soldier comes up and says, "Little girl, we can shoot aliens if you want, but just so you know, we are real. We exist." No, I'm talking to you, the little girl with the glasses on. Yes, you, Blondie. I'm talking directly to you. I can see you move your hand around. Yes. And the little girl, I guess she'd be freaked out, but then she'd go, "Oh my God, Mr. Arcade Store Owner, I have to tell you something." And the arcade guy will, "Well, I'm sure the game's just glitchy," and they're holding up a big sign, says, "We exist, acknowledge us." And the guy's like, "Oh my God, contact the politicians, contact the religious leaders. We have created the next stage in evolution. We have ourselves become the creator." I mean, this has been a holy grail of human endeavor for as long as we can remember. We've literally created life. Thinking, intelligent life capable of abstract, sentient thought. And we've been wiping them away, just callously, indifferently. If we were to find out that our universe was nothing more than a plaything for some greater being, wouldn't you think that we have a responsibility not only to ourselves, to our friends and loved ones, but to that being? To alert them of this situation? I mean, this isn't just a disservice to the characters in the video games. This is a disservice to us. I don't want this kind of blood on my hands. I mean, if the characters that I'm playing around with in that arcade game are real, if they're actually intelligent, even smarter than me, their whole lives have been defined by us. We've created their personalities. Some of these characters in the games, like the war games, where there's soldiers, trudging through the mud, they're traumatized.